Welcome back to Shat on TV Game of Thrones Edition, the unofficial podcast companion piece of the juggernaut HBO series Game of Thrones. I'm one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me is my co-host, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
Roger Roper could not be with us tonight. He is traveling. This is our Instacast episode, fresh off episode 5, Eastwatch, where we share our quick takes on this week's episode of Game of Thrones. Again, we're recording immediately after. So this is just our quick takes, impressions, and really on this one is the huge reveals that we saw in tonight's episode.
Yeah, I think we normally start off with what's our overall impression of what we thought of the episode. I vote we kind of push that to the back here and talk about some of the big reveals that people saw and then the ones that they might not have caught.
Absolutely. And again, if you are not a usual listener to the podcast, tune in on Tuesday for the deep dive where we get really into these and more questions. But on this one, there was just so much meat to the episode that we can get right to it. We'll talk about our impressions a little bit later, but go straight into the facts. And I think it starts off with, what people thought was the big reveal was Jon Snow touching a dragon for the first time, confirming that he's a Targaryen, but you might have missed something much bigger.
Yeah, so I think the big reveal that a lot of people might not have picked up on is the conversation between Sam and Gilly as they're reading the scrolls. It seems like just a normal conversation about windows in the Sept of Baelor and the stairs in, was it the Citadel?
Yes.
But it actually is the big reveal. The scroll from High Septon Maynard discussing an annulment of Prince Rhaegar, who was then married in a secret ceremony in Dorne. Neither Sam or Gilly understand the significance of what she's read, but what it actually means is that Daenerys' brother, Rhaegar, had his marriage annulled to his first wife, and then obviously subsequently married Lyanna Stark. So Jon, he's no longer a bastard. He is now legitimate.
And what's interesting about this revelation is that the prevalent thought was that she was abducted, that she was forced into, possibly raped, and then he was a product of that. Then his identity was masked by Ned Stark. But here we see that it might be a fact that this was actually a romance between the two. What I thought was really interesting was the show in this episode goes from giving us, normally it would give us a hint, and then that hint would mature over several episodes. And so we see, Gilly's reading alongside Samwell. Maybe, and I thought that was a pretty obvious foreshadowing, and then they just come right out with the reveal immediately after. So I thought that was really strange, but at the same time, we're working at hyperspeed on this episode. They're just going to blast right through it.
Yeah, the accepted story was that Rhaegar kidnapped Lyanna against her will, and that's actually what incited Robert's rebellion. So in season 6, when we had that flashback with Bran to young Ned at the Tower of Joy and the birth of a child, it's now undoubtedly Jon, the living, legitimate heir to the Iron Throne. If you follow the rules of succession, Rhaegar's legitimate son, Jon, has a better claim than Rhaegar's sister, Daenerys.
So that's a huge reveal. But there's a smaller one in the episode that I thought was really interesting, and it might have also confused some people, and it's what's going on with Littlefinger in that note. So listeners predicted that Littlefinger would be caught trying to cover up his tracks from earlier misdeeds, that he'd be spotted by either Arya or Sansa. Someone would catch him, and that's what we thought we were seeing on this episode. Arya sees him procuring a note from Maester Vulcan, and she goes and finds it, but actually he's playing her. And if you couldn't tell what the note said, because it was kind of blurred out, you only saw a couple lines of it, this is a note that comes from Sansa to Robb Stark in season 1. Again, another callback in this season. And it says, "Robb, I write you with a heavy heart. Our good King Robert is dead, killed from wounds he took in a boar hunt. Father has been charged with treason. He conspired with Robert's brothers against my beloved Joffrey and tried to steal his throne. The Lannisters are treating me very well and provide me with every comfort. I beg you, come to King's Landing, swear fealty to King Joffrey, and prevent any strife between the great houses of Lannister and Stark."
Yeah, I think this has to put your theory that Littlefinger is Snape. He is more cunning and conniving and diabolical. He understands what he's doing.
Right, and this note that Cersei had Sansa write, this was under duress. She was writing it basically to save her brother from war. Her father had just been killed. She didn't want him to have the same fate. And when Robb received this, it was supposed to make him come in and bend the knee, and instead, he called it and rallied his bannermen to go fight against the Lannisters. It really backfired against Cersei, but Littlefinger now knows that by Arya seeing this is going to drive a wedge between her and Sansa, which is exactly what he wants.
She doesn't even realize she's played right into his hand. But there's got to be some way that the two sisters still connect and realize what's going on, because this could force them apart and actually end ugly.
Another more obvious reveal, but something that's of significance in this episode, is we saw that Daenerys, of course, executes Randall and Dickon Tarly. And this puts the Lannisters at a great disadvantage. Now they lack a critical, sophisticated military mind in Randall Tarly. And the lady fans lack their fresh heartthrob, Dickon, who thankfully was soon replaced by Gendry as the new heartthrob, so that's good. But more importantly, Samwell now lacks a family. His father and brother, although he was on the outs with his family, they are now dead. This is a complicated situation, at least in my view, where Sam has to look and say, my best friend, the man who I just cured of grayscale, are serving a queen who just had my family executed and had the opportunity to spare their lives. And how that will play out remains to be seen.
I don't believe that Sam has loyalty to his father and brother. His father was embarrassed by his mere existence and exiled him to the wall so that he didn't embarrass the family anymore. His mother seems to care, and that's why Sam and Gilly left. He took the family sword. So yes, I think he'll be upset, but I don't think it's going to drive a wedge between them. He understands what the bigger goal is. So I think if anyone knows the real threat, Sam has seen it, Sam has battled it, and he's tired of reading about the accomplishments of other men. I don't think he's going to be bothered by it. He's got bigger things.
And you made an excellent observation earlier tonight when we were discussing this, where you said, Sam now becomes the head of House Tarly. So wherever his loyalty lies, that could be where the House Tarly's loyalty lies, and that could redraw the lines here of fealty.
But how many men are left? How many soldiers they have left that didn't bend a knee?
Yeah, I mean, one thing to remember, again, is they hit the tail of this train. There were many wagons ahead, soldiers ahead. It remains to be seen, what goes on there, if there is any power left. But at least they've got Brightroar, the Valyrian steel sword, which I'm sure will come into play.
You mentioned that Dany executes them. I think this signals a change in Daenerys. She's trying to win the hearts and minds. She gives them a good sales pitch. She said, you believe that I'm here to destroy, that I'm to be feared. That's Cersei. You've been living under that. And she tries to give them a different path. A small group decided to bend a knee without being forced. And of course, they all bent a knee once they saw the barbecue. But she went completely against what Tyrion had said. So our fears last week of Tyrion's position as her primary counsel, I think have come true. She is going against his advice, and it seems to be working, as opposed to what he's been doing in the previous few episodes.
I mean, I think in this episode, you definitely have people who have feelings against Tyrion here, because I was saying, what is he talking about? He clearly does not have the stomach for killing. And I agreed with her movement. She doesn't intend to take prisoners. She knows that leaves wiggle room. It's you're with me or you're dead. It's justice. She shows that she is both merciful, but at the same time, she is fierce. And I'm really starting to appreciate Daenerys as a character, even though many people, King B, don't like her at all.
Another one who seems to be questioning how it's going is Varys. Have we ever seen him drink? He grabs the cup from Tyrion and starts drinking wine. We got to have the listeners help us out here. I don't ever remember seeing Varys have an alcoholic drink on screen.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we were recording this really quickly after the episode, so I did a quick jump to go, do I ever recall it? Have I seen him drink before? He clearly seems unaccustomed to drinking. He's beside Tyrion. He kind of winces when he takes a swig. So whether that reveals that his walls are coming down, or that he feels that the situation is dire, or maybe he just feels more comfortable, it's an interesting development.
Yeah, I think his wit has always been his chosen weapon, and that wine would dull that. Here, maybe he just says, shit, everything's out the window. Give me a drink. I don't care. I need to have my wits dulled.
Another big thing we got to talk about is everyone was wondering if Jaime would survive. Clearly he did survive, and he returns, and how would he be received by Cersei? Now, I thought it was going to go a lot worse than it did. Cersei did turn on him, though, at the news of the loss and at their fresh disadvantage. I feel like Jaime got a sense that he's more servant than lover or brother in this sense. He is a utility to her. And Tyrion, in meeting with him, really believes that Jaime has more pull than he actually does. I think that he doesn't understand the power dynamic among the Lannisters, and that might come back to bite him in the ass. This could, ruin things for everyone. But in that scene, we also see that Cersei is pregnant. I thought it was interesting that she didn't technically tell Jaime that it was his child. She says, we'll tell them it's yours. He says, what will we say? We'll tell them it's yours. And so it leaves a very slight crack of a window open for another contender for father, perhaps even Euron.
Come on. We have 8 episodes left. If you want to throw in another illegitimate child or paternity question, I think it's ridiculous. The point of that scene was for Cersei and Jaime to get together. And Cersei, Jaime comes back a broken man, all intents and purposes. You just look at his armor, look at his demeanor. She's running through options, and he says, we can't win this war. He said, the Dothraki, I've seen them in the open field. It's not war to them. It's a sport. They can't win. And Cersei tries to bring him back up and build his self-esteem again by reminding him, you and I together, we can do anything. We can beat the dead. We can beat the dragons. We can beat the Dragon Queen. Because now we have a bigger purpose, and that is a living Lannister heir. So I don't believe it's a question of whether it's Euron's.
So how about this? And again, this is pure conjecture, but it makes sense from a standpoint of something that actually happens in royal bloodlines. She's seen Tommen. She's seen Joffrey. She's seen what happens with her children, at least the male heirs, and when they are a product of this illegitimate conception. And what she sees is that they fail. If she sees a weakness in the bloodline and begins to blame it on Jaime, she may be looking for fresh genetics, as it were, to fix that problem. But there's another point of tension here in the show romantically, and that's Jorah and Jon Snow. Jorah returns to Daenerys, and you see that scene with Jon Snow, the dragon, Daenerys. It's kind of building up either, if not a romance, at least a fondness. And you can assume that there's a romantic tension when Jorah returns and Jon and Jorah kind of have a look. There's the tension in the air, but there is a slight possibility that it could be mistrust or something else. It's not certainly romantic tension. It certainly feels like it. But what I found was interesting is later when they're talking about going north of the wall and volunteering to go north, you see when Jorah says he's going north, she accepts that volunteerism and commends him for it. But when Jon says he's going, she reacts emotionally to it. She seems upset or concerned.
Yeah, poor Jorah. He is just perpetually stuck in the friend zone. Whether it was Dario Naharis, he is always second fiddle. I don't feel it bothered him. I think he's come to accept it. Do you agree with that? Or do you think he still was hoping, like, I'm going to return cured? She tells me I'm looking good. Did he hope he would have a chance to get that emotional relationship he had always craved?
I feel like a Beauty and the Beast or Phantom of the Opera sort of vibe from him. I mean, when she embraces him and kind of brushes against his face, you can see that he's feeling something there, but I don't think he expects anything.
Yeah, I hope not, because he's not getting anything.
So other things we saw is clearly that this plan that Cersei has, she knows that if things go as a normal war would, she's going to get defeated. Daenerys will beat her. Jaime says it in no uncertain terms. But what we have here is she has an opening. She knows that this war with the Whites that Daenerys is proposing, which I might add foolishly, she knows that this is her opportunity, that she can turn on them. And I think people have predicted that even from the beginning of the season, that there will be this epic war with the Whites, and maybe Cersei could end up winning this all by turning on Daenerys at the last second when she's weakened. It'll be interesting, but I think that this armistice will be forged.
This is one of those that I want to go back and look at. I don't find it plausible that Cersei would know ahead of time that Tyrion's going to be within her grasp and she's going to choose to let him go. I don't buy it. Her anger, she's usually driven by vengeance. And then I question, how did she actually know this? Is Bronn's loyalty now in question? We've seen it has its limits, that he says dragons are where our partnership ends. But did Bronn tell her, or are we led to believe that there was some other way she found out about this information?
Oh, I think that any access to get that far down with the dragon schools, I mean, that is a very sacred part of the city, and I think that she would definitely know if anybody accessed in any way. My bet is that she already knew, but I completely see where you're coming from. When you're talking about Bronn, though, I think we can't go any longer into the episode to talk about Bronn rescuing Jaime and your feelings about it.
This was a first. In however many episodes that we're in now, into 7 seasons, I have never before screamed at the television, fuck no, bullshit. That reveal of Jaime and Bronn somehow swimming up what looked like a half mile away from the burning fields of the battle, that was just lazy. It was implausible, and it was unnecessary. You didn't need to have Jaime charging at the dragon like Don Quixote. It was forced. You wanted that scene, so guess what? You needed to write yourself an escape, and it was lazy, and I hope people aren't going to say, oh, come on, that could have happened. No, it couldn't have happened. You're in full armor and chainmail, and you have a gold 20-pound hand.
I think what upset me the most about it is when we saw Jaime falling into the depths, people said, he got tackled off a horse on shore and suddenly he's falling in like what seems like the Marianas Trench. What the hell is going on here? And I thought, okay, it's symbolic, it's artistic. Maybe he's going through a life change, some sort of a baptism of the depths or something like that. No, it was just complete incontinuity. He gets pulled out a little bit later. There was no, he's missing for a couple episodes or he goes under some life change. I think the only thing they did to balance it out for me is I got to see two characters that people really liked, particularly Dickon, get fried, and I did the opposite. Your fucking no bullshit was countered by my hooray, thank you TV gods for giving me, I needed that sacrifice. Gene needed blood, and he got it.
The nice thing is, because the show has built up so much goodwill, that any other show, I would have been just pissed off. I would have mentally turned off. But because it's Game of Thrones, within 2 minutes, a giant dragon sitting on a rock, burning people. It was out of my mind. So my first impression was bad, but by the end, I have like 8 pages of notes here. We have enough, I think, topics for possibly 2 episodes. So I can't complain. It's one mistake, one misstep. I'll live with it. Overall, I thought it was a great episode.
I want to talk on behalf of Raj here, because Raj is traveling right now. He's on a plane. We haven't talked at all about this. So I think I'm just going to take the Raj seat for a second and just ask how many viewers got a boner when Gendry picked up that Warhammer? Like, it just looked good on him.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty good weapon. Normally, I wouldn't believe a hammer could be that effective, but it makes sense. He's been training for how many years now on that hammer? And I think it's hilarious that the writers have a sense of humor, because everyone's been joking. Oh, where's Gendry? Has he been out there rowing? And Davos, answers. He speaks for us as fans when he first meets him and says, I thought you'd still might be rowing. So I'm glad they acknowledged that, and it was a good nod to the fans. But he is definitely somebody I want on my team if I'm going north of the wall.
Yeah, there was a lot of humor in this episode, and I like that Game of Thrones brand of dark humor, but also kind of being self-aware. I really liked, when they land and Tyrion says, last time I was here, I killed my father with a crossbow, and Davos comments, last time I was here, you killed my son with wildfire. That is trademark dark Game of Thrones humor. Really appreciated that, and it was a really brilliant callback again, which is the hallmark of season 7.
Then you get another funny moment where Davos is trying to prep Gendry about his backstory. Okay, don't tell him that you're the bastard son of Robert. Don't do it. It's going to cause too much problem. He preps him for about 30 seconds. He walks in and says, hi, John, I'm Gendry, bastard son of Robert. I thought it was great.
It was it was great. And John's reaction to it too is like, John has just seen so much shit. He's like, all right, cool.
I think he sees himself in him. They're both bastards. They're both men who want to tell the truth. They don't want to lie. They wear it on their sleeve. There's no bullshit. And I think he likes that and respects it.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Big D, because cheesy as it might seem, I actually really love this reunion. Again, we talk about the show working in cycles. It's a young Baratheon, a young Targaryen, and they're embracing here. They you can see it feels like Ned and Robert teaming up. Like it was this excellent testament to the cycles here. And what does concern me though is now you see Jorah, Jon, and Gendry. They're all going north for the fight, along with Davos, and so Grey Worm is stuck at Casterly Rock. That leaves Daenerys only with dragons and Dothraki as a fighting force. I mean, she's got Tyrion as an advisor. She's got Varys, Missandei, and the rest. But it is interesting that basically the bulk of her fighting heroes, as it were, they're all going north.
Yeah, and their plan is sound. I can understand why they're doing it, but the odds are against them. I don't see any way that this mission north is successful in any way. You have, was it 7 people? Once they picked up the Brotherhood and the Hound, was it 7?
Yes, 7, and I'm sure we're going to get a lot of emails about that. Put on the tinfoil hat. 7? That has a big significance in this series.
This plan doesn't sound like it can work. I understand it's your last-ditch effort, but Sending a lot of your 7 best fighters might not be the best use of your assets. You couldn't have taken some Unsullied or taken some Dothraki.
Well, the sad part about this, too, when you really think about it, is that they're going up there to capture a white. Cersei is going to go along with the plan no matter what. She doesn't even need to see a white. She would agree to the armistice just because it's a better position for her. It lets her, again, she's already made up her mind. She's going with the armistice in order to catch Daenerys unaware. So this is really sad, and you could see that the show is turning to a darker side. Even the costuming is getting darker on all sides. It's reflecting the mood of these nations. It's gorgeously done. If you see Arya, Sansa, Cersei, everybody is getting darker and darker visibly, and it's touching off the fact that things are not, I believe, not going to end well at the end of season 7.
Things are also getting dark for me now, realizing that we only have 2 episodes left in the season.
Yeah, I feel like we're just hitting stride here. And it's all over so soon.
God, and then we have another year of dark times. I don't even want to think about it. I'm not even thinking about the fact that we have only a total of 8 episodes left total. It's sad. We're going to look back years from now and remember how exciting Sundays were, and hopefully we can find something that will fill that big hole in our hearts. What
was the show that was tapped to fill? Westworld, right? Westworld was tapped to fill that hole. I think that'd be an interesting thing to write on. Write to us at host@shadowontv.com and say, would Westworld fill the hole for you? For me, I don't think so.
It's tough to fill this hole. Westworld is great and we love it. What? Okay, why are you always going to make things dirty? Yeah. It will be a giant hole in my heart, let's put it that way, to fill. And Westworld does a good job of filling some of it, but I don't know that we're going to find anything to fill this big of a hole for years.
Well, if you haven't seen the Westworld, I know you have, but if the listeners haven't seen the Westworld Season 2 trailer, it's looking pretty damn good.
Yep.
So that concludes this week's episode of Shad on TV Game of Thrones edition. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shad on TV. Facebook, search for Shad on TV Podcast. The website is shadowontv.com. And again, that email is hosts@shadowontv.com. If we missed something, if you have more to say about something we talked about, if there's something you want to make sure we get into the deep dive, or you want to hear on Thursday's Small Council, go ahead and write to us. Wherever where fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. And if you stop by iTunes, please do leave a review. That helps the podcast grow. We had another couple great ones this week. Also, you can check out our store on the website, shadowontv.com. On behalf of my co-hosts, Big D and Roger Roper, I'm Gene Lyons. Be sure to join us Tuesday for the Episode 5 Game of Thrones Deep Dive. Thanks for listening, and as always, knock twice before you join us on the throne.